Hey everyone, Joe Fox here, president at Growave. Today I'm joined by a very, very special guest and a friend of mine, and we have a ton in common, which you'll hear in about 2 seconds when you hear both of our accents. We'll try not to speak in too much Australian lingo so that the rest of the audience can understand. But I'm very excited to welcome Russ Macumber from Impressiv onto the Retain, Grow, Thrive podcast today. So Russ, thank you for joining, mate.
Cool, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Can you give us a little bit on your background, mate, and sort of how Impressiv came to be, even how you came to be in Austin, Texas, and everything like that?
Yeah, for sure. So, my background, I've been a marketer and in around marketing for 25 odd years. I started in pubs in Australia. So you heard the accent. Obviously, Joe and I both share the old convict blood. So, yeah, started in pubs. Worked at a pub chain, and I used to write marketing copy and do bar promotions, and I advertise in like local print media and do flyers and stuff around the venue, and that was kind of my foray into marketing. And I'd always loved advertising. I loved TV commercials growing up, so that really kind of just resonated with me.
Yep.
I was between. I've been booted out of college, so I was just working behind the bar and trying to figure myself out. And marketing was like that thing which really got me enthused in terms of a career. And then over a number of years, I moved in and out of a range of different types of marketing roles. I ran my own events agency, and I ran marketing for that. And we were buying Google AdWords for 6 cents a click in the early 2000s. I was running display
Wow.
ads.
6 cents, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I had no idea. This is like pre me understanding Google Analytics or anything like that. So I'm just putting money here, there, and everywhere. Had no idea what was working, what wasn't. We did outdoor ads, we did guerrilla style marketing, all sorts of different bits and pieces. Um,
Nice.
and then I did some experiential marketing. I worked for a firm that did, and I'm talking like pre-tech. So experiential marketing today is like QR code, virtual reality,
AR. Yeah.
yeah, all
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I'm talking like 2004, big football grand final, Coca-Cola activation, red balloons, and post-it notes, like literally taking
Nice.
people's details.
Nice. Yep.
That's sort of
Yep.
showing my vintage.
Yep.
And then I've been in and around digital for about 15 years. So I worked tech side for a big marketplace in Australia, and I ran the sales and did a lot of business education there. And then Impressiv, 2017, I joined the Australian Impressiv team.
Yep.
I was staff member number 6, headed up the sales team. From there, this American entity came to be when we picked up some American clients, and we realized that servicing them when you're 14, 15, 16 hours ahead just makes
Yep.
zero sense for anyone. So
Yep. Yep.
the idea for this agency kicked off 2019-20, and then that's when Impressiv USA, which I'm co-founder of, came to be.
Nice, nice. That's an awesome story. And, I really relate to what you were saying about the advertising component, particularly because that's what really drew me in and always had me fascinated. And I personally got sort of, that I had an agency in Australia. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
the audience knows, but the main reason I kind of went down that path is because my mum's cousin, so my second cousin, was responsible for the advertising for Optus with all of the ads. With all of the animals in the ads.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so
I
all
do,
of
yeah.
those campaigns were kind of like his brainchild. So I was always fascinated about it. And when I made that decision to really kind of go down that path of study and really try and, I don't think there's ever a way to master it because it's so evolving, but
Yeah.
to really, get into it at that time, I reached out to him and I said, look, like, I want to be in this industry. I want to be in this space. How do I do it? And he said to me, he's like, I think that our way of doing things is out the door and that you need to dive into the digital side of things. And that's when I went down the rabbit hole of Google Ads and Google
Yep.
Analytics. And Google used to have those road shows and stuff like that, which was really cool that I that's how I really got engrossed into it and met my the co-founder of my agency, my old agency, my business partner at the time at one of those conventions. So
Gotcha.
it's pretty cool. So I fully relate to that story, Russ. That's very cool.
Mm.
And the balloons thing is a cool touch. I wonder if they're doing something like that now, but maybe with QR codes printed
Yeah.
onto the balloons or something. But yeah, very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So on that note, Russ, obviously, there's been a lot of growth that you've had with the Impressiv brand here in the US
Mm.
and with this entity and you being the co-founder and everything. I was wondering if you can kind of explain to the audience, like, who is your ICP? Like, I know you work with
Yep.
quite a variety of verticals and everything, but who is a great fit for
Mm.
Impressiv? What are the brands you help the most? I know we have some shared sort of merchants that we work with between
Yep.
Growave and Impressiv, but for the audience's sake, who is your ICP?
Yeah, great. So we've got two broad ICPs. One, and the one which is most relevant to the stuff that we do with you guys, is broadly e-commerce brands. So
Yep,
anyone that does transactions online. Um, if we're really narrowing in, like high average order value e-com brands, luxury brands, big
yep,
products like fitness equipment or saunas or ice plungers, golf simulators, for that
yep,
kind of thing where you've got like a longer path to purchase, there's more nurture
yes,
involved, and there's potentially an education piece as well. So we do SEO on paid media. We find that where we've got a, a big ticket item that transacts online, we do our best work with those. So some clients, Top Fitness, which is a national retail brand, they're all over the US. We run SEO and paid media for them. And they actually fit our other ICP as well. So we've got e-commerce brands and then we've got multi-location brands. The reason we have the multi-location is because a lot of them, like Top Fitness, have both. So for us to be able
yes,
to help them on multiple fronts, we're also helping get foot traffic through to retail stores. So Top Fitness, Still Austin, which is quite a well-known brand here in Austin. It's a whiskey brand that they've been a client of ours. We've worked with the likes of Mattel and Hertz, some bigger brands, and then just a range of other e-commerce brands. Uh, Precool Home Fitness, Icebound Essentials. There's a bit of a range there. On the multi-location front, we work with Dine Brands, so they are the owners of Applebee's, IHOP, Fuzzy's Tacos.
nice,
So we
nice.
work with them, and you've got a range of other sort of multi-location brands, whether they're retailers or QSR, the quick service restaurants. That's kind of the main type of business we work with.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And I think that plays in a lot to everything that is coming up a lot, particularly led by, Shopify and the senior execs at Shopify like Harley and stuff, where they're really talking about this unified commerce piece.
Mm.
And, back in the days we were talking about probably a little bit after the balloons and the post-it notes, but
Yeah.
that what was referred to as omni-channel I
Mm-hmm.
think is now being referred to as unified, and it's a very interesting piece.
Yep.
You mentioned it earlier, the sauna thing. I know we have a shared customer in Ollie Saunas.
Yep.
Really cool, story around how that was founded. We might leave that to a future episode, but
Yeah.
really cool, kind of brand and brand story there. And I think it's interesting. I really, obviously we see a lot of partners that we work with, but I particularly see in the case of Impressiv, I really love it how hands-on the team was with everything and getting, Growave integrated and in a
Mm.
way that is really focused on, I guess, kind of like, because it is such, it's an expensive purchase, let's be honest. And
Mm.
I think like the fact that it's like working well and we're working well together is pretty cool to see, because I think a lot of people obviously think of like, when they think of ecom, most I think people are thinking quick D2C, $30 to $150 items that are turning
Mm.
over really quickly. But in this case, we're talking, sometimes up to $5,500 to $6,000.
And
So I
more.
think
Yeah.
that, yeah, that nurturing process is really interesting that you guys go through. Do you want to touch on maybe just a couple of key points around that? Because that customer journey, as you said, where there's multi-touch points, might be quite interesting to the audience, or perhaps, some
Yeah.
of the audience members are selling very high ticket items.
Yeah, I've got an interesting story. It's actually a client of ours, Top Fitness, who I just mentioned.
Yeah.
We've actually won it's US Search and Global Search Awards nods
Nice.
for a couple of campaigns, back-to-back years for them.
Nice.
Now, in terms of this high ticket item, so we run SEO on paid media. For this particular brand, Top Fitness, their previous SEO strategy involved acquiring high volumes of top funnel traffic and then retargeting via Google, which is great and which has worked for a long time. The challenge they've had is the blogs that were ranking. Their biggest blog was a piece. It was like how to get lean, or it's just stuff around how to use dumbbell curls, that sort of stuff.
How to get ripped for summer or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And it's a nice piece and it's going to generate a lot of eyeballs. But this brand wants to sell $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 treadmills and CrossFit stations and that sort of thing. If you think about the line of sight between someone doing that search for how to get ripped and spending $10,000 on a CrossFit station, that's a big stretch to think that person is going to make that purchase. So in terms of thinking about, okay, a 2, 3, 4 month sales cycle from the initial to when they actually purchase, what you need to think about is what sort of content, how we bringing them into the funnel, and how buy ready are they. So we basically restructured the whole SEO program. We ignored the top funnel. We moved into the collection space, into the comparison mid-funnel space, and then into the product space. What areas of opportunity do we have from an SEO perspective to optimize more mid and lower funnel, to bring the traffic in closer to being ready to buy, and then retargeting, and then doing all your performance marketing bits and pieces through Google and Meta, mainly Google and Meta. What we were able to do was shorten the sales cycle. So instead of being 3, 4, 5, 6 months, all of a sudden, potentially 3, 4 weeks, because they've come in much closer, much more ready to buy. We've made the ad spend much more efficient, because instead of needing the ads to acquire traffic at top, mid, low funnel, they're coming through organically, mid funnel, and then they're converting at the lower funnel. So the ad spend, all of a sudden your return on ad spend goes up, because you're not paying for every click for that buyer journey. Which you are doing if your organic is acquiring people that aren't quite ready to buy. I think having a good look at what your content strategy looks like, how your traffic is, how ready the traffic is when it comes in, and what channels it's coming from, whether it's email, whether it's influencers, how is this program integrated in a fashion that we're making the most of our lower funnel conversion tactics. So that's where, especially when we're talking about higher AOV, especially when there's an education piece, when there's a more considered purchase, really understanding the way that different traffic channels work together, optimizing those traffic channels so that you are shortening sales cycles to try to increase your efficiency with your spend, both paid and organic.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think it's interesting you say that. I mean, from a Growave and a SaaS perspective, one thing that we've kind of noted is that, and I think this is very similar to what you're saying. It's like when a customer comes in to a website to purchase and they add a product to their wish list, it's a very intent, we know that there's buyer intent there. When someone adds a product to the cart and leaves the website and it's an abandoned cart, the intent to purchase is really low. Mm-hmm. So what we found at Growave with this wish list sort of feature that we've been building out on continually is that when we send, when an agency or a merchant sends a wish list reminder through Klaviyo, the conversion rate on that is double versus just sending them a standardized abandoned cart email. And it's because the buyer intention is so much higher. So I relate that to what you're saying in terms of the funnel. It's like you're getting people that are coming in that are actually interested in purchasing and focusing on converting that as opposed to just filling up the funnel with people who are simply browsing and not there's a very low sort of intention to purchase there.
You've touched on something interesting there too. Those add to carts, which you think of as high intent, especially when we're talking about big ticket items, big bulky items. You know what they're using the add to cart for? They're doing it to figure out the freight costs.
Checking the shipping, yeah.
And then once they've done, and quite often they've done that, and the reason they haven't bought is because, oh wow, it's going to cost so much more. I'm not interested. So that's a really good point, specifically for those big ticket items around like the level of intent for wish list. You're making me think more about this wish list for retargeting now versus add to cart. Yeah. Very cool.
It's just such a higher intention, and the conversion rate is massive, and it's something that a lot of the people that we know at Shopify that we speak to get really excited about when they're talking about Growave to merchants, because it can be used for a whole bunch of different things, that wish list feature, like even when you're doing product releases. So like if you, instead of actually listing the product on the site saying coming soon, having it there and having it as an add to wish list, so you collect all of that data, and then you can remind everyone when the product is going live, and the buyer intent is a lot higher. So some of the, I don't purchase that sort of stuff, but like hype brands, like, you know what I mean? Where it's like, there's a new kind of like caps or t-shirts or anything like that coming out, having that as a wish list, it almost acts like a kind of like a pre-sale too, because you can work out what numbers of stock you're going to need to have everything, and estimate those sales. So it's pretty clever. But on that note, we're kind of talking about a few things that are working, really well at the moment. I know that you've been doing a lot on what's happening in search and SEO particular. And I think a lot of the audience and a lot of people still, and from my experience agency, like thinking about SEO, it's like Google. And I know that like there's just been this thing, particularly here in the US, even though we both sound like we're from Australia, how the DOJ has just said, Google has this monopoly on search and everything. And, obviously there's all sorts of stuff happening with like chat GPT and, DeepSeek and all this stuff. So I'd love to get your thoughts around why is that important? Why should, merchants who are watching this be focusing on that, and what should they be doing essentially to prepare and bulletproof their SEO strategy for this current environment and where we're headed?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one term which I've been talking a lot about, and which is going to be a much, much more talked about term over the next couple of years, is multi-platform search, right? So if we think about search, if we think about SEO, really we've been talking about Google optimization, right?
Yeah.
For the last 20 odd years. You've had whole industries, whole careers, agencies, businesses built around optimizing for one platform, for one algorithm. So an SEO will spend 100% of their time thinking about, how do I manipulate my website to get shown more visibly on Google? Now, I have to preface this with, Google's still 90% of the search market share. It's still a gorilla in the room. Even with that DOJ, monopoly ruling finding last week.
Yeah,
it's still going to be the market leader for a long time. However, what the really forward-thinking brands, especially D2C brands and e-commerce brands, are realizing is that demand isn't just a Google exclusive domain. Yep. Wherever there's a search bar, there's demand, right? So think about Meta, TikTok, Reddit, Amazon, search bar, right? What the really clever brands are doing, and what a handful of our clients have started doing, is thinking about that search bar. How can I optimize our content to show up in that search bar? Whether it be TikTok content, whether it be Amazon product listings, whatever it happens to be, because the demand is everywhere. The search is happening everywhere, and it is getting much more fragmented. So if you're looking for an opportunity to get your brand to have a little moat around your search strategy over the next couple of years, I'd be thinking multi-platform search. I'd be thinking, how do I start showing up, getting mentioned in ChatGPT, how do I make sure, when the other night, my son was doing a search, and I always think about this with my kids, right? He was doing a search for, I think it was a pair of shoes or something. I can't even remember what it was, but it was a what is blah. And he went to TikTok for that. And I said, why did you go to TikTok? Because I thought you used Google for what is, but TikTok for like how to. And he was like,
Yes.
yeah, but for this one, I wanted to know it, like I wanted to see someone my age doing it, not someone old like you. And I'm like, okay. So they're looking for that extra relevance, that extra
Yeah.
like contextual relevance.
Yeah.
So brands that understand, okay, well, our customers spend a disproportionate amount of time on this platform or this platform or this platform, are really thinking about how can they optimize their content. And to think that a Google SEO for the last, who's built a huge career in that for the last 15, 20 years, is going to just be able to shift skills and become a TikTok SEO or a YouTube potentially. But there's going to be new skills that are going to need to be developed.
Yeah.
There's going to be a whole new pool of different tactics, different types of people coming through optimizing for these channels. The content creators on those channels right now are doing black hat SEO for those channels. That's just what they're doing because they're trying to get their content found. You create something on Instagram, you want it showing up as often as possible. So you're putting little elements into that creative that from your own experiments will generate more organic visibility, more organic views. So
Wow.
these are the types of tactics that are happening on other platforms. People just aren't calling it SEO. But if there's a search bar, it's SEO. So for
Yes.
mine, bringing those all together into an integrated strategy across platforms is a huge opportunity for
Yeah.
forward-thinking brands.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think, it's such an interesting way to look at it. And it's like, I think, more so than other industries, us who are in digital and in this environment are
Mm.
subjected to so much change and so much evolved user behavior than a lot of other industries are. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really interesting to hear that. And I think, I would have to say since utilizing ChatGPT, particularly the paid version,
Mm.
um, I am even searching different. So
Yeah.
as opposed to just searching and finding myself, the way that I perform search on ChatGPT, as an example, is so much more um, detailed. So like
Mm-hmm.
I think ChatGPT is only good as what you input into it, because
Yep.
essentially it is an algorithm with elements of AI into it. So I think it's really interesting to hear from your perspective, like the fact that user behavior is changing to match that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a really fascinating space. And I think, to your point, merchants who are watching this, that's going to be something you should be incredibly proactive on, because I can guarantee you that your competitors and everything are probably already doing that. So you need to be, getting speed to market there.
Totally.
On that note, Russ, obviously, we always encourage merchants to work with agencies and to work with experts in this space, because it's not physically possible for them to keep up with these changes and understand all of this, because it's not their level of mastery. Their mastery is, the product that they've developed or the service that they're offering. So, um, on that note, Russ, is there? I know that you have some offers and things like that. Is
Mm.
there something that you want to offer to the audience in particular around that?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you can lift the veil on some of that and sort of explain that a little bit better.
For sure. Yeah. So anyone who's watching this, listening to this, if we're doing multi-platform search audits right now, where we evaluate your brand, we evaluate the channels that you're on, the platforms that you're on, and we try to figure out, is there actually an opportunity here for you to grab more market share on a channel? It might be Google, or on a channel outside of Google. So identifying the opportunity and then trying to think up, just a handful of tactics which might help you generate more visibility there. So a multi-platform search audit for anyone watching this, we're at impressivedigital.com. I'm sure it'll be in the
The
notes for
show
the,
notes, yep,
yeah.
absolutely, yep.
But just reach out and we're happy to have a look at your overall search visibility and see if we can help you figure out a way to position yourself and get ahead of your competition in that really exciting space of multi-platform search.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Russ. And I hope that's very valuable. And audience, I really encourage you to take advantage of that. I think, as I kind of said, having seen the way that Impressiv work, having, shared merchants between Growave and Impressiv, they're very, very, very focused on attention to detail and execution. So please make sure that you take advantage of that. As Russ mentioned, the links and everything should be in the show notes. Okay, so we're getting near time here, Russ. So there's one thing I like to do with all of the guests, sort of, before we close out. But what is one thing that you can't live without? So, obviously, we're both expats living in Texas. We travel quite a bit for work and all of those sorts of things. But what's one thing that you can't live without that you're taking with you all the time? Physical item, not can't do family members. So like it might be a book, it might be a piece of technology yourself, it could be a beverage, a food.
Yep, yep. Probably a bit boring, but it leads into something else. I mean, it'd be my earbuds.
Yeah.
And it's because I have to exercise. If I don't exercise, so whether I'm traveling, if I'm at home, literally after we hang this up, Joe, I've got my running gear right here. I'm going to go out for a run because I didn't get out earlier.
Love it. Love it.
So I have to have my earbuds with me anywhere. If I land in New York for a speaking gig or to see clients and I get off the plane, one of my favorite things to do in the morning in a new city is to just explore the streets and run. If I don't have my earbuds, I'm not very fun to be around.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's like I'm the same. I mean, I have like 3 pairs of these scattered throughout in the car, in my gym bag, everything like that. I
Yeah,
think it's really important. And I think to that point that you were talking about around search, I'm sure there's some stuff even around Spotify that you can do to show up in Spotify search, which is,
yeah,
I'm only thinking that because we are just talking about it. So that's fascinating.
yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Russ. Always good to catch up, mate. And lastly, just for the audience, obviously, we mentioned that offer that they can take advantage of. But if people want to connect with you, are they best to send you an email, connect with you on LinkedIn? What's the best way that they can sort of follow you and what Impressiv's up to and your content?
Yeah, for sure. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. So just look up Russ Macumber on LinkedIn and happy to connect. Always keen to talk SEO and ads and just anything around, getting your brand visible. I'm a total nerd for that stuff. So hit me up.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to another episode of Retain, Grow, Thrive. All of the links that are mentioned will be in the show notes. We've got a lot of sort of filming and recording coming up. But very super excited to have my good friend Russ on today from Impressiv. So thank you all so much for tuning in, and I'll chat to you shortly.
Cool. Thanks, Joe.